Celestial Tower by Aislinn Somers. I'm always up for a challenge, especially ones involving video games, although there is one challenge that I will never accept again. The Pokémon Nuzlocke challenge. It all happened 6 months ago on a rainy day. I remember that on one day I was bored. I had nothing to do. I decided to watch some YouTube videos to pass the time. As I logged in, something caught my eye. Under the Recommended For You section was a video entitled Pokémon Pearl Nuzlocke Challenge Complete Walkthrough. Nuzlocke Challenge? I asked myself. I'd never heard of it before. I decided to watch and see what it was all about. As the video went on, I realized that it was the perfect challenge for me. The idea of releasing all of my fainted Pokémon and having the only option to catch the first Pokémon you find on each route or area seemed difficult. When the video ended, I decided to try the challenge for myself. I sifted through my Pokémon video games, I had nearly all of them, and settled on Pokémon White version. I had beaten the game 3 or 4 times already, so I was pretty familiar with the Unova region. I popped the cartridge into my DSi XL and started a new save file. I named my character Aislinn and chose Snivy as my starter, like I always do. I defeated my rivals Bianca and Sharon with ease. When we went to Professor Juniper to get the Pokédex, I named my Snivy Leaf Snake. I'm horrible at nicknames, and then started up on my journey. On the first route, I caught my Pokémon. It was a little pup. I named her Polly. I went through the rest of the in-game tutorial and got ready to battle the gym leader. My team was now Leaf Snake, Polly, a Patrat named Chippunk, and a Panpour named Splash. I got to the gym leader, Chili. Polly and Chippunk fell prey to Chili's Lil Pup. I finished off his Lil Pup with Leaf Snake and defeated his Pansear using Splash. So I played the game for the next few days, many of my Pokémon dying and whatnot. I started wishing I hadn't nicknamed all my Pokémon. It made it hard to release them. As I played through, I realized how hard this challenge was getting. I had to resort to some cheating sometimes to stop myself from losing too early in the game. I decided to make rules for myself to make it easier. One of these is that I can use 1 revive per battle. I finally got to the Elite Four. My team was Leaf Snake, who was a superior by then, a Watchhog named Chipper, an Unpheasant male named Greywing, a Liepard named Kitkat, a Durant named Armor, and a Haxorus named Drax. All were immensely overleveled. I challenged the Elite Four and emerged victorious with no losses, which surprised me. I continued on to catch Zekrom. I used Chipper and Leaf Snake to lower its HP, then used Drax's False Swipe to get Zekrom's HP down to 1. I then caught Zekrom in a Great Ball and took Armor off my team for Zekrom. I then proceeded to battle N. He was easy as always and none of my Pokémon fainted. I then went to battle Gessis. I started to worry. Gessis Hydreigon was one of the hardest Pokémon to defeat. I beat his first 2 Pokémon with ease, but then he sent out Hydreigon. I sent out Zekrom and used Dragon Claw. Hydreigon was faster and used Dragon Pulse, almost killing my Zekrom. Zekrom used Dragon Claw and only took about half of Hydreigon's HP. I used a full restore to get Zekrom back to full health. Hydreigon used Dragon Pulse, but this time it was a critical hit. Zekrom fainted and I sent out Drax. I used my revive for the battle to revive Zekrom. Hydreigon used Dragon Pulse again, and it was another critical hit. My Drax fainted, which was a total bummer. I really liked Drax. I sent out Kitkat and used the turn to use another full restore on Zekrom since he only had half of its health. Hydreigon used Fire Blast, and I sighed in relief as it only took 40 HP of Kitkat. I switched to Zekrom and thankfully Gessis did not predict the switch and his Hydreigon used Surf, which only took off 11 HP. I commanded Zekrom to use Dragon Claw again. Hydreigon was still faster, but this time he used Focus Blast, which was still pretty powerful and left Zekrom with only 23 HP. Zekrom used Dragon Claw and it left only a sliver of Hydreigon's HP. I swapped out Zekrom and sent out Leaf Snake. I then selected Leaf Blade. Leaf Snake was thankfully faster than Hydreigon, and although Leaf Blade wasn't very effective, it still defeated Hydreigon. I defeated his other Pokémon easily. The battle ended and I watched the rest of the dialogue, mourning over the loss of Drax. The credits appeared and ended with N flying off on Reshiram. After that, my sprite was back in my room and went downstairs. There was the agent from the International Police there, and he told me to look for the 7 sages, and he gave me the super rod like normal. He started to walk towards the door, but then he stopped and shook his head. Text appeared. Don't do it. He left, leaving me utterly confused. This wasn't supposed to happen. I knew the game inside and out, but this was new to me. I shrugged and led my character outside. There, Cedric Juniper gave me the national dex. As he started walking away, he turned back and faced my sprite. Text appeared again. Don't do it. It's not right. Don't do what? I about shouted at the screen. What's not right? Of course, Cedric couldn't hear me. He walked away to go back to the lab. I was starting to get annoyed. I walked into the lab and talked to Cedric, trying to figure out what this was about. But he just said what he normally said, about analyzing how many Pokémon I've caught. I selected no and walked out of the lab. Well, I thought, time to release Drax. I selected Greywing and flew to Nimbasa City. I entered the Pokémon Center and something wasn't right. All of the sprites were looking at me, and as I walked around, they seemed to turn in order to keep looking at me. I tried talking to them and they all said the same thing. Don't. Don't what? I was actually shouting now. My father peeked into my room and asked what was wrong. Nothing, just the game. I replied and he left after telling me that he and my mom were going to go out to eat. I was thankful for that, for I didn't know how much shouting I was going to do that night. I turned on the PC and released Drax, but the text wasn't right. It didn't say the normal, the Pokemon left, goodbye Pokemon, or whatever it said. Drax passed away. The text ended with a strangled, Haxorus cry. Wait, what? I exclaimed. Passed away? Did the game know that I was doing a Nuzlocke? I wondered, and what was the deal with that Haxorus cry? I started to get creeped out. I wondered what was going on. I didn't think it was a glitch. Maybe I got an altered game with a different ending if the player was doing a Nuzlocke challenge? I wanted to turn the game off, but under all the fear and mixed up thoughts was a feeling of curiosity, so I kept playing. I exited out of my PC and noticed that all the sprites in the Pokémon Center except Nurse Joy and the salesperson were crowded around me. I talked to them and they all had a different dialogue. We warned you. Why didn't you listen? Getting even more creeped out, I exited the Pokémon Center. My X-transceiver started ringing. I picked it up. It was Skyla. Wait, Skyla? I asked myself. I knew that Skyla never called you in the game. Text appeared on screen. Aislinn, help! Something's wrong at Celestial Tower. She hung up, leaving me in utter bewilderment. Celestial Tower? What was wrong there? Maybe Team Plasma killed a saucebuck or something, and now its child is wandering around the tower? I joked in my head. I knew that wasn't the case, though, but what was it then? I decided to go help Skyla with whatever it was, so I used Greywing to fly to Mistralton City. I landed in front of the Pokémon Center there, and Skyla ran up to me. Text immediately popped up on screen. Aislinn, you're here! Why wouldn't I be? Wait, who was talking? I wondered. Then I realized that it was my character. Something's wrong inside the tower. You already told me that. What is it? Is it Team Plasma? No, not Team Plasma. You disbanded them, remember? Oh yeah, what's wrong? Some of the Pokémon buried inside the tower are angry. Aren't those Pokémon dead? Yes, their spirits are disturbed. Their trainer hasn't rung the bell for them. So what do you want me to do? Ring the bell for them. It doesn't matter who rings it, as long as it's for them. A text box appeared. Do you want to help? Yes? No. I chose yes, because I had a feeling who the spirits were and I wanted to know if I was right. The conversation ended and I started walking to Celestial Tower. It was involuntary, my sprite moved on her own. As soon as she entered the route, a battle began. It was a double battle, and it was against a Patrat and a Little Pup. I sent out Leaf Snake and Zekrom, but the Patrat and Little Pup were not Patrat and Little Pup. They were floating in the air. Some of their body parts were replaced with wispy tentacle things that swirled to and fro. Their eyes were black pits with red dots in them. As I read their names, my suspicions were confirmed. The Patrat's name was Chipmunk, and the Little Pup's name was Polly. My two Pokemon that fainted during the first gym leader match. Both of their levels were placed with question marks. I instructed Leaf Snake to use Leaf Blade and Zekrom to use Fusion Bolt, but instead of the attack animations, text appeared. Leaf Snake recognizes her friends. She refuses to attack. Zekrom feels sorry for the spirits. Zekrom will not attack. So, I couldn't attack. I wondered what the spirits will do. Again, same as before, text appeared instead of attack animations. Did you want us to die? Why didn't you ring the bell for us? I'm sorry, I yelled, tearing up. It felt so bad having my former Pokemon looking like this. To my surprise, text came up as I said this. Microphone picked up the voice. The spirits aren't listening, it seems. Huh? I murmured. That's strange. The battle options screen was back on. Curiously, I selected Run. Got away safely. I breathed a sigh of relief. Text boxes went up. I heard your voice. You're lying. The sprite continued on, every 10 steps or so running into one of my dead Pokemon. All of them ghost-like. All of their levels were replaced by question marks. Every time I selected an attack, each of them failing because Leaf Snake did not want to hurt her friends. Every time I yelled into the microphone that I was sorry, or that I was going to ring the bell for them, each time I ran away they called me a liar. That is, until I reached Celestial Tower. When I went inside the tower, the Pokemon became more frequent. When I yelled into the microphone, the text said, Microphone picked up voice. The spirits are starting to take interest. When I ran away, the Pokemon would say, Are you sure you're not lying? I finally got to the top of the tower. Hesitantly, I approached the bell. Right before I reached it, a battle started. It was Drax. Like the other Pokemon, he was floating, his eyes dark pits with red pupils. His tail and the axes on his jaws were replaced with the ghostly tentacles. I sent out Leaf Snake, planning to run away like all the other battles, but a text box appeared that stopped my plan in its tracks. Drax used Mean Look. No animation played. Mean Look. Drax didn't know that move, but I shrugged it off and continued playing, although I didn't know what to do. I couldn't escape, and I really didn't think I could attack, but I tried using Leaf Storm anyway. Leaf Snake feels sorry for Drax. She refused to attack. That's exactly what I expected, I muttered to myself. I wondered what Drax would say to me, but to my surprise, he attacked instead. Drax used False Swipe. Like last time, no animation played. I gasped as Leaf Snake's HP dwindled down to 1. No beeping sound occurred. Then I realized that no sound was playing, no battle music, nothing. Just silence. A text box appeared. I will show your other Pokemon what it feels like to be dead. You let me die. You let your other Pokemon live. How could you be so selfish? I jumped when I read those words. What are you talking about, Drax? I didn't want you to die, I shouted at the screen. A text box appeared. Microphone picked up the voice. Keep talking. Drax is listening intently. What am I talking about? You know what I'm talking about. How could you possibly say you didn't want me to die? You buried me. Our conversation went like this. I never wanted you to die. I'm sorry, but all Pokemon that faints in Nuzlocke Challenge is considered dead. You fainted. Ha, you could have cheated. Leaf Snake told me that you healed her when she fainted. But it was at the beginning of the game. I didn't want to lose too early. You're full of excuses, aren't you? Huh? You heard me. Now the rest of your Pokemon will suffer. But they're your friends. So, I was your friend. I'm sorry, Drax. I really am. I'm not lying. I believe you. You may be sorry, but you still don't care about me or the rest of your dead Pokemon. I do. Then why didn't you ring the bell for us? I'm going to ring it right now. How can I believe you? Why do you think I'm standing in front of the bell? Very well. Ring it then. If you don't, you'll be sorry. The battle ended. I walked up to the bell and pressed A. An option appeared. Would you like to ring the bell? Yes? No. I chose yes. The bell rang and a text box appeared. The spirits are calmed. You may leave. The text ended, and I flew away on Greywing. I still continued to play the game, although I abandoned the challenge. I caught all the legendary Pokemon that I could catch. I leveled my team up to 100 and started battling and trading with my friends. Every day I went to Celestial Tower to ring the bell for my Pokemon, for Drax. The same text box appeared every time. Thank you. That was Celestial Tower. Final thoughts? A promising start, but it just devolved into garbage cliches. Although having a bit of information about how the character decided to do the Nuzlocke challenge is nice, it's not really necessary. This becomes a problem when it goes beyond just a paragraph or two about starting up the challenge, and it gets into a lot of ultimately pointless detail about the journey to the Elite Four and whatnot. The interesting part is that the story was actually holding my interest for the first bit, but as soon as the police started saying text that they wouldn't normally say, is when I almost completely lost interest. It's like 75% of stories now have this crap where the characters in the game just talk to the main character like they're aware of what's going on. It wasn't that creepy the first time, so why the hell do so many people do it? Really, I'm not even gonna get into the rest of the story. What is there to say? Ghost Pokemon lost a Nuzlocke challenge, black pits fries with red dots, it's just non-stop wall-to-wall, really shitty cliches. Here's an open question to my audience, and I know some of you are very young. I do have viewers on these Creepypasta who are 12 years of age. Well, here's an open question to you, and be truthful in the comments. Have you ever once been even remotely creeped out when it gets to the part of the story when the player of the game starts talking into the microphone to the Pokemon who don't believe her? Has that ever creeped you out at the age of 12, 13, however young you might be? A few people have asked in the comment section why I bother uploading stories if it's this bad. Well, two reasons. One, it's part of my policy to not read the story until I've been told it's ready to be on the show. I leave the peer editing up to the fans and moderators. If I were to read and review every story that people write for the show, I wouldn't have time for anything else. As for the other reason, it's important to show people both what works and what doesn't work so they know the do's and the don'ts before making their story. That way, in the future, the stories will be better. Keep in mind that we are in the process of making a community where the stories are as good as they can possibly be, so there are going to be a lot of failed attempts along the way. That's it for this week's Creepypasta. Join me again next Saturday when we read yet another Creepypasta made by the fans over on the Creepypasta section of my forum. If you'd like to write your own, read the stories early, or help peer edit them, check out the description where you'll find both a link to the Creepypasta section of my forum, as well as the playlist of all the Creepypasta that I've read. Also, a personal thank you for being one of the 18% of people who stick around for the afterthoughts. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, sweet dreams.